All right, it appears to be working mostly. So I got to do the link thing, and it always takes a portion of time. Maybe I can do that ahead of time somehow. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. Yeah, it seems like I should be able to do that before I actually start the room. Maybe. Before I do the actual live thing. And then I won't have to do this, whatever, post the link in the description thing. And then go to the actual window of the video, which is irritating. So I can see the chat things. I can't see it from the chat thing. Yeah, anyway. All right, so I did pause that. And okay, so we should be functional enough. Should be good enough to get by. Make the windows smaller. So this will fit over that. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Mostly. All right, so I was going to read the asshole's comments, so I guess I could do that. But I won't be able to see this part here, but I guess that's okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, defending the electric theory or whatever. The Tesla slash, I don't know, whatever. I don't even know how to describe it, right? Let's see. What's your hypothesis to explain polarization of light? Oh, I mean, Jesus Christ. You're just saying, why bother? I mean, the link is always in the description, right? Well, mostly to the website. Maybe I'm missing something, but is there nothing? But if there is nothing, how can something come from it? Yeah, you're missing something. Obviously. It's the way the universe works. So you want me to explain the entire, whatever, how exactly matter came into existence? That's not part of my theory, asshole. I mean, why would that even be part of a response to anything I have to say? I've plainly stated it's one of those questions you can't answer. But there's clearly answers in the sense that you could say the universe manufactures nothing. And when it commits an error, it's called a something. But, there's lots of ways to do that. Mostly word games, though. All right, so some guy, miss unequal plus the primer field. So, yeah, some of these primer field people or whatever. Ton of comments just saying a bunch of shit, which is irritating. All these people are wacky. First of all, Mother Nature is limited to Earth. Second, he did his job. He explained very well. He used sound, logical explanations. Oh, good. All right, so he's defending the sort of Theora of populist guy or whatever the fuck he is, the Cameron guy. And so I guess I'll go back to the beginning. But it's all this 60,000 comments on one fucking video, for fuck's sake. Theora, whatever he is. So, starts off with dude. I mean, right there. Goddamn motherfucking cunt. I really hate that. I hate that dude shit. I'm not your dude, asshole. So anyway. Alright, nobody's in the room. Okay. I have to check now and then. Maybe I can make this window really small and I can put it over here. Alright. So then I can see if somebody shows up. Read his book about this. Doesn't sweat it. It isn't religious mumbo jumbo. No, but he just keeps saying the same shit over and over again. He keeps using terminology, perpredation, and then all this. It's all this geometric shape shit, and it doesn't explain anything. It's not an explanation of why things are attracted. It's just like saying they are, and so it's not an explanation of anything. So it's just not useful In my opinion, physics is just not what physics should be doing a lot better than. It's just attracted to it. It just moves to it. He did explain it very well. He said even has the math formula for theocrafting his position, whatever that means. Theory crafting? I don't even know what that means. When he mentioned field, he doesn't think fields exist as things. You think it's electricity and magnetism based. Well, duh. Yeah, but he doesn't give them any form. He doesn't explain what they are, how they carry this thing called force. Where I think he misses a part is the fact that aerodynamicism play a part also. Well, that doesn't make any sense because this obviously has nothing to do with physics per se. Call it electrodynamism. Well, you go ahead and do whatever you want, but I'm just saying it just isn't explaining the mechanism. If such an acronym isn't already named for magnodynamism. So I'm wasting my time, right? I mean, I say quanton, graviton, magneton, electroton, and you're going to just keep telling me, no, it's something else. No, I'm saying it's those things, and I explain why those things work and why those things unify and why those things function based on something as simple as just a kinetic interaction, a very simple mechanism. So I win the Occam's razor race to the simple solution. Example, less the 29 degrees you get benefit more than 29 you get arrow, break, etc., etc., etc. Well, whatever the fuck that means. I would suggest you revisit the guy. He has a lot of videos, but his hard to follow. Yeah, duh. Better read his book. I read a couple of pages of his book, and it was just the same crap. Him in the primer field theory video. All right, so this primer field theory. Again, which doesn't, in my opinion, explain fields at all. It doesn't explain what they're made of and why they work. Mioia, compiling evidence they are into something, whatever that means. We might not know fictional electricity and magnetism as much as we think we do. Whatever. Obviously, this guy's foreign. Yeah, foreign. Ugh. Simply put, he think universe is electric, since Tesla said there is no energy in matter other than that received from the environment. Since this is likely, there is only one way to get energy required for atom requirement and the universe. That's not a period, that's only a comma. This might be the longest sentence on record. Frictional electricity and also magnetism. Now we have two periods, okay. Frictional electricity and also magnetism. Well, anyway, I mean, the idea that matter and energy are connected was already solved by Einstein, and that E equals mc squared thing is perfectly reasonable. We know that the component energy goes into atoms and the component energy comes out of atoms. If you haven't seen the primer field theory, never mind the theory name, go see it. I have seen it. I think it's also what's called the electric universe or whatever. I am pretty sure when you link Theora apocalypses and the primer field video, you'll too likely notice there is something going on that angle of thought. Well, why should I? Again, I don't care about any of this shit. I'm arguing in defense of a completely different theory, shithead. I don't need a stupid theory that doesn't do anything. I don't need a non-explanation. I have an explanation for the function of the universe. I have already quantized the force element, the energy, and I've unified it into every expression it has in the known universe. Asshole. Oh, it starts with dude again. I'm not your dude, douchebag. I am maybe the dude. If you want to call me the dude, you can get away with that maybe. But I'm not your dude. Dumbass. Listen to a few videos of his first, then if you piece, you can't reply to only partial. You can't reply to anything he says because he doesn't say anything. You know, a lack of inertia. What the fuck does a lack of inertia mean? You can't escape inertia. Inertia is a condition you're in if you're a fucking thing. You're stuck with it. You either you have it, whether you don't have it. I mean, inertia is what you have as a state. You're moving or you're not moving. Those are both conditions, and they're both inertia. How can something have a lack of inertia? How do I argue the point of view that says magnetism is a lack of inertia? So it's not moving, and it's also not standing still. Oh. I mean, it's not something you can rationally argue. It's mush. It's like me saying the food you will make is crap because you mentioned crepe. It's called out of context. You know, your fucking whole commentary is out of the context of the videos, which are videos defending my unified theory of reality. Asshole. Like I said, I might be wrong, but here to read his whole point of view before saying he is wrong. Again, you know, I'm not. What I'm saying is I can tell he's wrong because first he says things that are stupid. There's no particles, and that it's possible for stuff to be moving faster than the speed of light. I mean, there's things he says that it can't be true, and then he uses experiments to demonstrate that are fraudulent experiments. They're just simply fake, in the sense that he's not explaining everything that's taking place, and he's not accounting for what's taking place. And I think some of this stuff he knows, and he just doesn't care to point out that you're not bending light with a magnet. But he sits there and argues as if he can do that he's demonstrating light being bent by a magnet. He's not doing that. That's not what's happening. You are debunking on stuff he doesn't even bother, since it isn't part of his concept. No, asshole. I mean, that's just a silly thing to say. I mean, the video was titled that you're responding to was a response video to his shit. So what are you talking about? Yep, there are a lot of rambling. Why? Question mark. You ask him. Why else? Oh, come to a point. I don't know what that means. Like I said, read his book. It's 110 pages. No, I don't. I already pointed out. I've read enough of it to say why would I want to waste neurons on a fable? Very simply, very easy to debunk. Again, how is it easy to debunk? You explain to me how you debunk somebody who says it's a lack of inertia. How do I prove there's no possible concept as a lack of inertia? Read it all first so you get the sense of his point of view, which is, no, I've already done this. Been there, done this. His point of view is silly. All right, the next comment. The point of this guy, generally electricity, magnetism, inertia, and a few other he named, but I can't recall. Well, gee, that just says so much, right? Electricity, magnetism, inertia. That explains the universe. Well, those words really don't explain shit. And the root of all that is going on, from the atom to the pulsar smashing together. Yes, he has a gravity idea. He thinks gravity is magnetism. It's not, plainly, clearly, but that's what he says overtly. But it is very far from today's idea of gravity. Well, it's not an idea because it has no coherency. There's no explanation of why it creates something called attraction or repulsion. He doesn't explain how this thing actually makes something move away, or how this thing makes something go together. None of that is explained. He just says it does it. All right. Anyway, next, you can't pull on nothing. You might want to argue with polarity then. I don't know what that even means. You can't pull on nothing. I mean, you're not even on the subject. Where did I claim you could pull on nothing? I'm not the one arguing that, jackass. I mean, you ought to have a quote from me somewhere in here, asshole. Electricity is invisible. Magnetism is invisible. And yet I am pretty sure both of these can be so intense they can destroy. Well, that sounds like something Tesla would say. I mean, it's just as poorly stated. Yeah, visibility doesn't have anything to do with substance. So again, the argument's not about what's visible. The argument's about whether it's a thing. Glass is transparent, but we know it's a thing, even when you almost can't see it. We know it's a thing. you know, I mean, it's just force is not nothing. It's something. Those words by themselves don't explain a thing, but he does explain them. And no, it isn't all religion. Those words are used to science can understand, not mumbo jumbo religious crap. Well, I mean, I'm afraid it's full of dogma and jargon, which is pretty much the definition of religion. If he was into this on magnetism, I would have disconnected a long time ago. Well, that's whatever, your prerogative. I'm just saying you like a non-explanation. I don't. Frankly, I got no use for physics that isn't explaining anything. Jargon is not an explanation. Sometimes he has to use past things to show from where his point of view was born, but overall those words explain pretty much how he viewed Mother Nature's ways. Yeah, well, I just I can't even listen to him anymore, because if I hear him say nature's not a whore on crack one more fucking time, I'm gonna go fucking insane. I mean, he just keeps saying the same shit over and over. You know, insufferably insufferable. All right. Sometimes he uses past things to explain pretty much his view of Mother Nature's ways. Like he says, it's simplex, but very complex. Yeah, see, now that's just, who the fuck needs that kind of conversation? It's simple but complicated. Or whatever, I might have it wrong, LOL. Basically, in my own word, he think our word is way simpler than human think, but it isn't as simple as it look when trying to understand it. Well, exactly, because he doesn't have an understanding of it. He has a pile of jargon, and the jargon is incoherent to any kind of image of reality. It doesn't give you a model that you can fit in your brain. Hell, this guy has a math formula tattooed on him. Well, that just says what? Nothing. Except he's got everything tattooed on him, number one. But beyond that, I'm just saying that it said something about some kind of condition. I would say mentally, if you're tattooing formulas on yourself. But anyway, way he can calculate the magnetic wave shape. And again, that explains what? I mean, first, he can't prove that magnetism in any way whatsoever looks anything like his sand dollar mathematics. His hypertroloid or boyloid or whatever the fuck it is. Clearly, it's not how we measure the field produced by magnets. So it doesn't even fit. And the only way he makes it fit is when he uses one of these tricks, this Faro cell, which is not it's a toy. And what it's doing is bending pathways for the light to travel through based on the friction that's created inside, the pressure that's created inside the fluid itself. It's like a liquid crystal display, and you run your finger across it and the colors change. It's not an accurate measuring device. But look at the math formers. Anyway, I like the fact you took the time to analyze his stuff, but I suggest you view all his magnetism video. Yeah, well, I've seen a ton of his magnetism videos, and like I said, some of them are interesting tricks, but they're tricks. I mean, when he puts the gyroscope on, he doesn't hold it at all kinds of different angles. He does a specific trick to emphasize the point he's trying to make, and he doesn't show you the stuff that doesn't make his point. Yeah, he could have made a 2-hour video explaining it, but I suspect, well, if he made a 2-hour video, he'd just be saying the same shit 700,000 times instead of just 700, because he just keeps saying the same things over and over and over and over and over again. But I suspect hypertoroid. But I suspect his ideas coalesced over the years, since this is likely a hobby. It probably took a lot of time to bring into video. Last book was in 2014, 2 years, and yet he mentioned he has content for edition 5 and 6, and obviously this is a hobby. Well, that's kind of irrelevant. The point is he's making direct accusations. He's like I said, I would agree that Einstein was wrong about bent space, and yet he has to make these insulting accusations against Einstein and defend anything Tesla, like Tesla was some sort of god, and he wasn't. Tesla was wrong also. Don't use human, use atom or whatever to give an example. I don't even know what this... Why? Don't make idiotic comments. Don't make a whole bunch of comments on one video. Watch the whole video, then comment, jackass. Because I don't know what that even means. Maybe you're responding to one sentence in my video. Fuck you. Okay, before you continue trying to understand, possibly of the University, go see the 3 video on YouTube, the prime field theory. He does lab experiment on magnetism, etc. Well, again, I would argue his lab experiments are far from clinical experiments. They're engineered props. Yeah, pretty much. You are wrong. What he say is everything is real, nothing is virtual. Well, again, I would also argue that the term virtual used by, Einstein, I said it in the video you're commenting on, jackass. I'm sure I said there's no such thing as a virtual photon, but they're actual photons. Nothing. The word he used are linked to the magnetism thingy. Yeah, well, the magnetism thingy pretty much describes it all, right? You can't even describe this magnetism mechanism. You have to call it the magnetism thingy, because he doesn't have any kind of rational model of how this magnetism thingy does anything. This is why in the out of context manner you do it doesn't make sense. Perspective. Yeah, well, whatever. Fuck you. Remember, his mother nature doesn't do virtual. Again, I don't need you to tell me to remember something that I've already argued against. Mother Nature's job is to keep everything in balance. Even that's a dangerous word. In space, in water, in air. No, it's the very fact that you're seeing something means is the imbalance has to exist. Local fields get imbalanced. Local conditions become imbalanced. Something goes that way, and an equal amount of something goes the other way. That's Newton's law, and it's correct. How? Now that this is your job to answer. What? I have to answer why there's only a certain amount of left and a certain amount of right in the universe to start with, and that if you have a whole bunch of right over there, you must have extra left over there. I don't think I have to explain that shithead. My view on Tesla and Einstein both lied. I don't even know if that's a proper word to use. You might be able to answer the why if I write this. No, I doubt it. There is no energy outside the atom other that received from the environment. There's no energy outside the atom other than that received from the environment. Well, obviously, if it's not in the atom, then it's in the environment. But there's energy within the atom. So I don't even know what you're trying to say there. You said it so poorly. But obviously, there's energy outside of atoms. There's energy inside of atoms. Ugh. Anyway, honestly, I think it's a great idea to do it your way. Then why are you writing all this crap, shithead? Why are you irritating me for nothing? You're closing this. Anyway, I couldn't do it. Let's assume you are a doctor. You have went to school so long that your mind is bent in a certain way. But let's assume a guy came on your thread and she is a dot connector. Most dot connectors won't make sense to a doctor. I don't know what that means. And yet will bring you an angle that in most occasion you would never even start to question in that manner. Well, yeah, obviously you're not going to inspire me at all, buddy. Sorry. If you are on a subject that have very important ramification for you, paper is your best friend. Well, I already wrote paper. And once printed, read it yourself. Why? Because if, say, someone else does something for you like a book, etc., and you come up with your own info, nobody but you will understand it. Well, again, that's why I have metaphors like dancing and schools of fish, because people can understand them. It will be changed into something they understand, but it doesn't work anymore for your lab test, whatever that means. So keep paper record, because computer data get changed willing and unwilling most of the time. Oh, Jesus, this guy is just too fucking annoying. Let's see. This is just a long pile of crap. A dot connector, right. Most of the time they find the first step and later they can't follow up. Whatever. Fuck you. This is useful shit. Question minute 12. How come I feel like you forcefully stay away from magnetism? Yeah, that's why I wrote a whole fucking field theory of it and explained that it's polarized gravity. You know that gravity is part of the frictional electricity and magnetism, right? It's the other way around, but fine. Explain polarization, right? Okay, so yes, so we're deleting all of this crap, buddy, because first off, you don't post what must be 15 comments on a video. You just don't do that. You just don't. You don't do that. It's rude. Yeah. And I really don't need, I'm not looking for advice. I'm not looking for whatever it is you're selling. I'm not buying it. Yeah. Yeah, and you're not arguing anything I'm arguing for in my theory. And so They're of no value. The particular video was that I've pointed out, I tried to have a conversation with this guy because I figure something good might come of it, just in the sense that we both agree that Einstein was wrong, and that we might be able to be useful to each other in the making that argument to a broader audience, and creating some opportunity for some sort of thought about what might be the truth. And then obviously I would argue that my theory wins in such an open field. Yeah, I've got the winner. But you have to have open minds for that to take place. And so the problem is the cranks don't have an open mind. They realize that there's lots wrong with conventional physics, but their counter argument is just more wrong physics. It's more physics by icon or something. It just becomes a Tesla-Einstein stupid contest rather than a contest regarding what physical model makes the most sense, is most consistent with all the evidence collected. Something like that. So anyway, I thought that would be more fruitful, but it was less fruitful than I thought. So, and I am very tired, but I figure I'm here, so I didn't have any other agenda. It's just like 2 hours ago, I was like, well, even 4 hours ago, I was like, yeah, I'll do a room tonight. But 4 hours has ensued between now and then, and I got tired as I did stuff, and it made me tired. So that's my bad. I don't want to really do galaxies again, but that's where I was the last time. I was still working on some of those mechanisms. But there's just so much wrong with the premises built into physics now. You got to get them to go a step back, well, a few steps back, and just start over in terms of mechanism. It's just a force thing. I mean, that's all it comes down to, right? Physics has left force as this invisible agent of bent space or virtual something or other, or, it is like a charge. It's just magically attracted or magically repulsed, instead of explaining a mechanism, a means to be repulsed or a means to be attracted, some kind of thing that happens, a mechanism. So they just don't have any mechanism. And by simply going back before the wave theory, you can have a mechanism. Because you can understand that gravity is a real thing falling on you, literally. That you're surrounded by the bits hitting you. And when there's an imbalance in the bit field, you will move in the direction of the imbalance. Well, in the direction of the weaker field. And that's what charges are doing, that's what magnets are doing, and that's what gravity is doing. They're just moving to the weaker field. And weakness of the field does depend on their condition, their orientation towards it. Obviously, when you're facing the field this way, there could be a strong field coming at you, but you're facing it this way, so you don't hit as much of it. And there's a weaker field coming this way, but that weaker field is easier to hit you because you're fatter this way than you are this way. It's a simple mechanism. I mean, profoundly simple. But that truth is the truth of how the universe works. That's how these things work, is they have a dimensionality, and that shape decides how they receive what they're exposed to, quite simply. Put simply. Yeah, that's a better way to say it. Put simply. So, no one's chatted anything. I'm viewing the chat for no good reason. Oh, maybe I'm not. I don't have the right chat window open. Yeah, I gotta open the other window to see the chat. Sorry. I think I do anyway. I believe I must. So I have to have. Where is it? This window open. Ah, nobody there but Poker Face Todd. We think slowly, but sometimes we think slowly. I don't know what that means. But thanks for visiting, even though you're some sort of silly money whoring capitalist pig thing. And Todd's not a very good name, by the way. Yeah, I know. Every Todd I met was always a nerd. Even a bigger nerd would be a Tad. I remember I had a kid I knew in high school. He was just such a mess. I tried to reform him, of course, tried to save him from his nerdiness. But his name was Tad. Tad. I mean, you just can't get worse than a Tad. Anyway, that's not really a scientific thing, is it? I suppose there could be you could turn everything into science. So I guess you could make analyzing the nerdiness of names as a scientific thing. But that's even too drafty a science for me anyway. Try to do something better than that. So apparently Poker Face Todd isn't around permanently, so he was only visiting or something and saying something incoherent for no good reason. So thank you for the incoherent drivel. Really appreciate it, blah, blah, blah. All right, now I can see the chat, which is empty, and I can see the chat in this room that's also empty. And I have the hiccups. Cigarettes, really good. Anyway, so I really should be doing some great physics because I have cigarettes, but I'm tired. So I should get out a piece of paper and do some physics here. Start with something just simple. I think I just said it pretty simply, but that's really the game. Is you just got to always keep starting over. And when something just sounds a little too silly, Einstein should have done that. I mean, when he did this whole bent space and this relativity thing, something in his brain should have said, no, there's real velocity, though. I mean, I can play this game like you can't tell who's moving, but somebody really is moving and somebody's not, And he should be able to deduce that, just from the rotation issue. I mean, that logically you couldn't make any sense out of saying the moon is stationary and the Earth and then the whole solar system are moving around the Earth. I mean the moon, the stationary moon, in this eccentrically bizarre manner. Just totally bizarre. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, you can just kind of deduce that, no, the moon's got to be the moving element because it's got the compound movement. And it's also got the right what you could call the right mass kind of considerations. The smaller things can go faster, easier than big things. And if the moon was stationary, the sun would be going preposterously fast for something that huge. So, you know, just as a logical test, you could just say that just doesn't pass. You know, it's too Goldilocks. It's too, no. It just isn't going to fit. You can't do this porridge eating bear thing, sitting in chairs and crap. It just doesn't work. And, you know, that's just where physics just failed, was, you know, these are just such imperfect answers to questions. And the whole wave theory was like that, this whole idea of just some vacuous, undescribed, undefined wave. You know, it can be wide, it can be narrow, depending on circumstances, it can do almost anything. So it's just circumstantially convenient, you know, it can do whatever you need it to do, it can do. I mean, that just doesn't sound like the fundamental particles have all this ability to be, you know, transformers, to totally be whatever you want them to be in any experiment. That's, you know, that just doesn't sound, that should just, the bell should have gone off and they say, no, it doesn't sound like a very good answer. A little too convenient that the smallest things are the most complex things. It just doesn't sound right. All the complex behaviors being created by the little tiny things that can't really have any complexity. So, you know, they just fucked it up. So force is just such a fundamental word here, because force became invisible. It became a non-real thing. Okay, that's a good way to say it. Non-real. So it wasn't part of the real mechanics. So we knew that light, so light wasn't called a force and radiation because we said, well, we can see that. Yet it behaves much like all the things we can't see. It behaves like the other forces. So that's why they started calling things virtual photons. It's because the forces behaved as if they were invisible light. You know. So visibility is just such a, I mean, it seems like, you know, there's no way they should have got hung on something so simple as lacking imagination, you know, lacking the ability to say there could be something like an invisible photon. And that would explain what gravity is. And then you could just say, well, what would make a photon invisible? But see, that's where it all went wrong, is because they didn't think the photon had any substance. They turned it into some wavy thing. And you can't see a wavy thing anyway. I mean, it doesn't have any substance. But see, this is all just so, I mean, in hindsight, looking at it, it's just hard for me to understand how they could ever not have figured out that all phenomenon that we see a photon through, I mean, you can't, photons are invisible like all the other forces. And the only thing that makes them visible is the fact that they interact with electrons. So a photon is nothing, you know, technically. It's nothing until interaction with an electron, specifically. I mean, they might also interact with protons and neutrons, but I'm just saying, as far as we know, it's the electrons that are the game. So yeah, until it interacts with the electron, you can't detect it. You can't know it's there. You can't feel it. It doesn't discharge any exhaust. It doesn't leave a trail. It has no reality. And yet you know it does, because it travels all the way across the universe to get here and hit your eyeball. I mean, it's obviously, and then we see it do all these things in front of us. And it does it in this way that seems so bright and loud and clear. But that's only because of the density of them. There's so many of them. They seem to fill the room with activity, you know. But between the thing you're looking at in your eye, that photon it doesn't exist as far as you can tell, as far as you can know. You can't in any way, there's no possible way to touch it, to sense it, to detect it outside of its inclusion, its interaction with an electron, its substantial interaction with an electron. But I mean, this is just such a fundamental thing, because they gave the properties of an electron to the photon, not because the photon is displaying any of those properties as it moves from point A to point B. It displays none of those properties. It will never produce electricity. It will never produce magnetism as it travels. It won't. It won't produce anything detectable. Anything. It won't produce anything. It won't produce a force until it actually terminates. It terminates in the sense that it stops and then is readmitted. So even that part, to not figure out that that's what's really taking place, is a conversion. But I mean, it's such a fundamental error to give photons properties because of what they cause electrons to do. They cause magnetism in electrons. They cause electrons to become charges. They become accelerating charges, which ends up producing fields. But the photon itself doesn't have any of that capacity. It's not until it interacts with an electron. So it's just such a fundamental error. And again, the velocity argument, the other big Einstein mistake, to negate the fact that velocity is a real property that a thing has, and it has real consequence to its material structure. So over these small speeds that we can detect, we can't relate to something going more than, say, 20,000 miles an hour or something. Anything faster than that, we can't relate to it. We can't interact with it in any kind of rational way. And those speeds aren't nearly sufficient to cause a huge degrade in the matter, because they're still substantially below the speed of light. But I mean, the matter is going through a process as you accelerate it. The matter changes, and that's why it has inertia. That's why it continues to move in a direction, is because it's changed. And it must move in the direction because of the change. It's spiraling, its orbits are bent, it's crooked, it's structurally changed, and that's why it has momentum. It keeps going because it's physically in a condition that forces it to go. It's a thing it has. It's not something in the world or in the environment. It's not a dimension in space. Speed is something you have as a quality. You possess it. Your matter endures it. Your matter contains it. Your absolute velocity is a reality. Right now, we're sitting here and we have an absolute velocity. It's impossible for us to detect what it is, but it exists. We have the speed of the rotation of the Earth. We have the speed of the Earth around the sun. We have the speed of the sun in the arm of the galaxy. We have the speed of the sun in the entire galaxy. See, I would say those are two different speeds because the things in the galaxy are actually moving towards the arms, not towards the center of the galaxy. So they have more than one velocity as they sit in their position in a galaxy. But those are all additive speeds. They all combine, and some of them negate each other in periods. But in any one moment, we're radically changing. Our absolute velocity is constantly changing, and certainly the direction, its vector, our net directional vector, is constantly changing minute to minute. And there's such a density of the matter, that seems unintuitive. How could my matter possibly be doing that? But factually, what your matter's doing is it's exchanging every atom is being the quanta, the actual bits in every one of your atoms is being exchanged 1 trillion times a second, or whatever the huge, the amount of movement in the tiny universe is just you can't have an intuition, you can't have a rational connection. It's not as bad as contemplating infinite, but it's really a hard thing to contemplate in terms of the density. An atom is to an apple what an apple is to the earth. I mean, it's just and we haven't even gotten to the quanta. It's a preposterously dense universe, and there's a tremendous amount of time, in a sense, of clock ticks on their scale. On our slow scale out here, it all seems tick, tick, tick. But on the scale of the atom, each one of my ticks was like 1 billion years long. The billions of events took place in that one tick. Me saying tick. Billions of minutes on the atomic scale happened, so to speak, metaphorically, relativistically. But yeah, it's just so wrong to create these fake dimensions, space and time. Time is a function, and space doesn't do anything. So that's just a canard. That's just it's creating a nothing that you can bend. I mean, all they needed was something to bend. They need to bend something to duplicate the concept of a well so things fall into, which is, using gravity to explain gravity, which is so lame. But regardless, they need something to physically, mechanically change to duplicate the consequence of gravity, the inverse square thing. And that's all they did with this fake vortex, this funnel. They just duplicated this with a funnel. 4 times bigger here than here. 4 times bigger, half the distance, 4 times as much hand as here. And yeah, funnel duplicates that. But there's no funnel. This is being created by real bits, and that there's fewer bits that get to you based on how close you are, because the bits all have a trajectory. And so the number of bits that you can see or hit by gets changed based on how close I get. The closer I get, the more bits that'll hit you. Yeah. You will encompass, you know, a larger piece of the vector pie. However to say that. The wedge. So, anyway, 3 o'clock. So it should be like 9 o'clock in the morning there in Britain time by now. And so I was hoping somebody might show up, but not so yet, anyway. And no comments either, so it's just kind of blah, blah. But yeah, it's just these, you know, I could keep, I mean, I have to keep stating it just because these are just such simple mistakes, but they're fundamental ones, elemental ones. You know, they're foundational. So, I mean, you got these different words you can use for the foundation. And then elemental. And what was the other word I used? But that just makes them critical. You can't get the stuff wrong there. Froze. Still frozen. Tap on the screen. Nothing. Yeah, well, that usually doesn't work. I think it's a browser crash. I had that happen the other night too. I do have to make sure when I do these rooms that I just do a clean browser reload. Because, you know, it's totally busted now. Totally busted. Don't know if it's recording still. Let's see, what can I do to help? Yeah, I don't know. Try something. Okay, I'll try something, see what happens. Try that. Clicking on that didn't seem to fix anything. Got way too many windows open, I think. And I really can't close them because it's not letting me do that either. So I think we're fucked. Used to be the old days, the old escape keys to fix problems. You hit the escape key and it would fix something. But don't fix nothing anymore. So I think we're done. I guess I'll just I'll have to reboot the browser and re-enter the room and fix the problem, whatever it is, and such. So I guess we'll do that because it doesn't look like we have a choice. I could close some windows here and see what else. Close some other applications running, but that usually doesn't fix it. Once Firefox starts to fail and it just starts, I don't know, it does some sort of catastrophic memory dump thing and it just can't recover. Mostly. I mean, obviously, there are times when it surprises me because it does recover and you say, it saved itself. But most of the time, once it starts to fail, it just fails and then fails some more and then fails some more. No, I don't have my task manager open. piggery. Sucked up all the memory. Yeah, it doesn't look overloaded, but it apparently is. Let's see, maybe we could just kill the plugin container, but that usually just ends up in the same blow up anyway, so fuck it. All right, I guess I'm back. Sorry, interruption, technology and such. And now the cats want something. So anyway, so I'm back in the room just to say goodnight and thank you and such. Well, I won't bother with the thank you part because nobody showed up. Not that they were obligated. I mean, yeah, it's too unpredictable as when the room will be open. So Just have to wait till I'm incredibly popular, and then I won't have to worry about soliciting participants. But yeah, it's just too difficult to plan ahead. Yes, I just don't know what my mood is going to be, hour to hour and such. So maybe next time. But purposeful enough, I think. Good enough video, such you'll have to do, and yeah, could have been worse. Could have. Yeah. I wrote some stuff down. It's good. Stuff is written down. Ideas fermenting, percolating, boiling, interactions. More filtering happening. So it is all filtered. Everything is just a filtering of crap. Crap filtered. Yeah, we just filtered crap. Yeah. Well, it's probably a word for that. I haven't made it up yet. So anyway, last chance. Popping in. It's 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,